And welcome to Building Africa, where we are here to showcase a little bit the success stories and what's happening on the continent. Beyond the negative and the challenges and the hindrances, what are the opportunities that we see? And I'm more than happy to be here on Africa Day of Information with Mr. Meredith Beal, who is the Senior Technical Technology Advisor at the Africa Media Initiative. And he'll be talking a little bit more on the opportunities that we need to be seizing as African media to actually leverage the opportunities to be indeed shaping the Africa's transformation. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Novella. I'm pleased to be here at the Africa Day of Information celebration, and I was really encouraged by what I heard today. The size of the gathering, the passion with which people are really expressing that, we have an opportunity and now is the time to seize that opportunity. So, yes, I'm very, very happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. So I would like for us to probably unpack what opportunity are they to seize indeed. So the media in Africa, we know the many challenges and we know that we can probably not compete with international media. But what is that particular element that we need to actually work on and capitalize on if we want to develop the media sector?
Yes, we can compete with the international media. The African story was the first story. We have no problem with African stories. What we need to develop is the ability to package those stories in a compelling way so that the audiences are engaged. So leveraging the tools of technology and what innovation has enabled, both in terms of reach of your audience and also the tools to make better productions. Stuff is getting cheaper every day. Bandwidth is getting cheaper every day. Storage space is getting cheaper every day. So the opportunity to even the entrepreneurship, which years ago, it took a lot to get your word out. Whether you were making a movie, you had to have a film company. If you did a TV show, you had to go to a network. If you had trying to do a radio program, you had to go to a radio station. Now those tools have broadened. Broadened. So one way that, aside from compelling content, is collaboration, networking. What we're not doing enough effectively is leveraging social media between countries. And also because of the youth demographic in Africa, the average age in Africa is under 30 in most of the continent and under 25 in some places like Burkina Faso. So you have a powerful reservoir of talent, energy, passion, and ingenuity coming up. Right. If we manage that well, we'll benefit. If we don't, it's going to be trouble, not just for us, but for everybody.
So we're talking about information, and in the past decades, information was associated to media. And when I say media, I say traditional media. Mm-hmm. Today, Fourth Industrial Revolution is bringing disruption at all levels. And what you're saying is that we need to leverage that. But it's also complicated for a media that is just getting to probably trying to stabilize and has to be disrupted again. So how do we make sure that we tap into that opportunity, but as well develop that sector that is probably still needed?
Well, one of the things that was talked about today was training and standardization of training. As a media owner, I was very frustrated the fact that when I hired someone who came out of, they graduated with a journalism degree or broadcasting degree, they couldn't be productive on day one at work. That doesn't make sense. So what that highlights is the disconnect between the curriculum in the academia and the practicality of on the ground what you need in a radio station or a TV station or a print house.
Mm-hmm. So training is important indeed, mm-hmm. But and the education system, the reform of the education system has been a discussion on and on for a number of times.
And the problem with that is because educational institutions, especially universities, move slowly.
Indeed.
And the rate of change is increasing exponentially.
Because by the time you have a new curriculum, you have to change it again.
Yeah, they will never keep up.
So how do we make that happen?
Disrupt that model. Seriously, that's the only...
So to find or to address disruption, we have to disrupt
yes.
a little bit more.
A little bit more, but strategically in the right places. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of people who have been doing things well, identifying and capturing best practices. And obviously from market to market, there's peculiar dynamics that things work here that won't work other places. But there are some things that would be successful generally broadly. So that's part of it. Like I said, the collaborations, access to funding. Part of when I first came to the African Media Initiative, which African Media Initiative is the largest umbrella organization of media owners and operators. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded a program to strengthen the management skills of those, and I was sent to manage that program.
Right.
And so one of the things that I noticed was this lack of financial information. So, for example, a guy's a good programmer and he starts a radio station, or he's a good journalist and starts a newspaper, but he's not a businessman. He doesn't know how to talk to the bank.
Right.
Or if he needs money from a private equity, how that conversation differs from getting money from a VC. You can create a new line of revenue that you didn't have before. So you're broadcasting a program, and it's a drama. The dress that the star has on, so you can pause the show and go buy that dress in the middle of the program. So that's a new line of revenue by you partnering with a wardrobe clothing manufacturer or a electronic consumer manufacturer. These new ways of accessing things. Or my audience is into bicycles or into skateboarding or whatever it is. In the same way that the digital migration has enabled a lot of niche channels, cooking channels and swimming channels and whatever else, there's the opportunity for the media house to create programming that's even niche, and especially with the vernacular. That's the biggest gap.
I think what you're saying is very important and critical, because we also need to start thinking about our audience, and our audience meaning not the international, but the local people that we are serving. So on a final thought, what is your message for young journalists coming into the media sector in Africa? What should they be looking for? What should they be doing?
Well, a couple of things. There's one area, there's a movement called open data, the open data movement. A journalist who understands how to use open data will make more money and do a more compelling job. So just briefly, open data is a movement where there's a lot of information that governments hold, that NGOs hold, that universities hold. For example, Kenya is the first African country to release a massive amount of data. After that's out there, there's things that people can do with it. So, for example, in the UK, the Guardian newspaper has been publishing for 100 years. So at some point they realized that we have all this information in the house, we've already used it. So maybe if we put it out there, somebody else can use it. So they liberated, or they digitized everything and made it available through API, which is a port. So how a coder can go get that information. So one mundane example is they publish a recipe every day. So they have 365 times 100 recipes.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense to create a giant cookbook. But a clever young man created a mobile application. So you go in your refrigerator in your pantry. I have 10 onions, 5 carrots, 3 heads of lettuce.
What can I
whatever
make?
it is, and that app touches on the Guardian's database of recipes and says, okay, here's 7 recipes you can make with what you have in the house. So that 99 cents that the person paid for the app is split between him and the Guardian.
Right.
So now in Kenya, the Standard has been publishing 100 years. So we went to them and said, okay, why don't we do an exercise? Look through your archives and see what you can repackage and sell to an NGO, sell to a research organization, sell to a university. So Standard opened a data desk, a data portal. So that's one example. The CIA has a bunch of free information about every country.
How do we tap into that?
Yeah, so the African Media Initiative and others have been organizing trainings where they put in application developers with journalists. And here's what open data is, here's where the information is, here's how you as a journalist can create visualizations to tell your story better. So that's going to up-level the professionalism and the skill set, and again, separate those who know that from the journalists who don't.
Awesome. And I think those are great avenues of things are available. And probably for me, my take on this Africa Day of Information is that information is available. How do we turn that into knowledge, into something that can actually be marketable and bankable on the market and create probably revenues and develop the continent and the journalists themselves. So that is my key takeaway. Your last point?
Well, there's too much information available.
Right.
Every human being who has access to what's going on is inundated with information. What we need to develop is the ability to discern truth from falsehood.
Right.
Critical thinking used to be taught in schools. In the United States, it's not taught anymore. Mm-hmm. Critical thinking is very necessary for you to be able to take information and figure out whether it's relevant to you or not. Mm-hmm. So that's my take.
Thank you very much for sharing those with us, and I'm hoping that our audience is getting a lot from you. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, and look forward to coming back whenever you